y'all, welcome to my channel. Thank you all for showing up. I had a series that I was calling Bad Bosses, but I'm just going to turn those into story times because out of that same particular place there might be several different stories in that, not just the bad boss. And this one place I worked at, I could probably take out like 10 or 15, 20 stories out of that one, but it was a national pizza chain, and I was a delivery driver, and I love that job. That was the best job ever. But it was a little stressful because, the first time that I met the owner, he was really, I want to say, discriminatory, and he did not like people of color, and anti-gay. He was very, very religious. He went to this church, and he was very into the church, and him and his wife, and he had, I think, 2 or 3 kids. She got pregnant, had a baby at one point. So they had ended up with 3 or 4 kids. I don't really remember. And the first time I met him, I had my double ear pierced. I have 3 now, but I did have 2 piercings, and then I have my one up here. I don't have an earring in it right now. He came over to me while I was making a pizza, and he goes, "Does that mean anything?" I was like, "What?" And he's like, "That earring." Like he almost didn't want to say earring. And I was like, "No, it's just an earring." And I really didn't catch on to it, but he wanted to know if I was gay. And they told me, and I had only been working there a few days. And then the other 2 or 3 employees saw it happen. And then I told somebody else working there, and that person informed me, he wanted to know if you were gay because he's very anti-gay. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And they told me about his church and all this stuff. And I was like, "Oh, all right." And they also had, I think they owned 2 or 3, I think maybe 3, 2 in the city I lived in, 2 stores, and then another store in another city. And one of them was the delivery store I worked at, and the other one was a big, it's a national chain, and it had, it was a eat-in, you could either pick up or eat in, and they also had a kids section where they had a lot of kids. No, it's not Chuck E. Cheese, but they did have like a kids area that had, I don't remember, games or some, I don't know, things for kids. And I think he introduced himself actually the first time. I think I was standing in the middle of the work area, and he came in and he was talking to somebody, and he wanted to always meet the new people. He would just come and either look at you and watch you, or he would say something to you sometimes. And he just walked up to me and he said, "Hi, I'm not going to say his name, so-and-so." And he shook my hand, and instantly when he shook my hand, I got this idea, it just went through my body that this guy has a predilection for young people, young children, in an unhealthy way. That's instantly what went through me. And then he came over and he said that thing about my earring, and then he left the store after a few minutes. And then I did tell a few of the people, I think he's a blankety blank, the particular person that would be on a specific registry for these types of people that are usually, you don't want them around your kids. And they started laughing, and they're like, "We kind of wondered about that too," but they kind of said it jokingly. They were laughing about it, but to me, I instantly felt that. And about 15 years later, I was looking online at something, and his name popped up on this particular registry. And I was like, I knew it. And this guy had 3 first names, and I don't want to say them, and he owned a business. I don't know if he still owns this business. I'm not sure, but he would not have been allowed in the one store that has the area for children, because he was considered, I think, a moderate type of individual on the registry. They give them labels as unlikely to offend again, or moderately likely, or I think strongly likely, and I think he was in the middle, moderate likely. And the manager there at the store I worked at he was kind of something else. I actually did like him in a way, as he had a really good personality. He was very intelligent, very smart, funny. But he had, everybody has their faults and weird little things. And we kind of did become friends a little bit, actually, because we were older. I was around 29, 28, 29, maybe 30. I think I worked there for like 3 years. And he was a few years older than me. And we would talk about things that we understood. And a lot of the people that worked there were like probably between 8, maybe 19. Well, we had phone girls that would answer the phone. They were teenagers, like between 16 and about 18, maybe. I think the oldest one was maybe 18. And then the drivers were probably between about 20, and most of them were under, I would say 23, 24, like that. Just getting out of high school and going to college. And then there was me, who was the oldest actual driver, and then another, she was an assistant manager, and she was a little bit older than me, but younger than, maybe she might have been older than him. I don't know. They were kind of closer in age than I was. And me and, I'm going to call him Bob. Sometimes me and Bob, we would talk and we'd laugh, and I had no attraction to him whatsoever. He was like Humpty Dumpty shaped and very unattractive physically. Couldn't be farther from anything that I would like. But I'm not saying that in a horrible way. It was just, a fact of, because you cannot help who you are attracted to and who you aren't. It's just some kind of weird, nobody can really explain it. You can see somebody who is really beautiful to other people, but you may think, oh, they're so ugly, or I don't like this about him, or whatever. And to me, he was completely just unattractive. But he was a nice person, and I really did value his friendship. And we did kind of become, I want to say, pretty close friends. And it was a little bit more, for him, it was a little more than a friendship. Or he sort of, I think he fell in love with me. And even the manager, the female manager there, she told me, be careful, because he has a weird way. He does not, I don't want to use the S, harassment. He doesn't outright do it, but he has this weird kind of way that makes some people, he just has like a need or something. I don't know. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever been through in my life. I mean, I've been straight out harassed, and I've been creeped out, but this is just one of those subtle, weird things. And it's not even actually, in a way, I couldn't even file it as a harassment complaint until a few particular things happened. But she did tell me, just watch out, because it's happened to a couple of other people that worked here. And one time, I got a camera, a 35 millimeter camera, and I used to love to take pictures, and I was an amateur photographer. And anything I did or anything, he would try to find out. He would research it and try to find out and start, so he could have some kind of knowledge about it, But I think a lot of guys do that. But to him, it was like a little bit obsessive. He was a little obsessive, I would say. I mean, he didn't outright just completely harass you, but he would just, like anything you did, that I did, he would find out about it or figure out, information about it and try to talk to me about the subject. But most people do that. But it was in, like I say, the most weirdest way that he would do it. And one day he came up to me with this little Instamatic, tiny little, they used to make these cheap little cameras that you used to have to put the film in, and not the digital type. This is a long time ago. And they kind of you had to load the roll of film in, and I learned how to develop the film at home. I took a course, and I bought the chemicals, and I learned how to do it in my bathroom. I made a little darkroom in my bathroom, and I was taking the courses. And someday I might show some of my pictures, but came up to me with this little tiny Instamatic camera. It's real cheap and crappy, and it had the film cartridge that you just put in it, and it didn't have any controls or functions on it. It was just preset. And he's like, he showed it to me, and the way, I can't really explain the way that he did it, but he's like, do you think, I know that you've been doing photography, and do you think you could help me? I don't know, can you teach me how to do it? And he had this little cheap camera, and it was brand new. You could tell he went out and got it. It was brand new. I was like, I guess, but there's no, you can't, I looked at it, it's like, you can't set anything out. These are all preset. All you do is point it and take a picture. That's all you could do. It had no, you couldn't adjust the aperture or the ISO. It didn't have anything that you could adjust. It was just all preset. And I told the manager about that, and she started laughing. She goes, and then he did a few more other things. He would find out something that I liked or did, and it just kind of went on and on. And she slowly told me, well, see, it's starting to happen. I was like, oh no, he's just, we're friends, and he's just trying to take an interest, because I think he kind of has a boring, he was kind of like needy, like, I think, and he wanted friends. He tried to arrange for all of us to go to Six Flags, all the employees there, that we could, he wanted one group of us to go to Six Flags while the other would work the whole week or something like that, and the others would take the other half of the crew would take a trip. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going with all these people. I barely can stand to work with them. I mean, I really wasn't friends with hardly any of them. There were some nice people there, and I didn't mind, but I was like, I'm not going to be in a car with these people and drive up. I really don't know them, and I don't care to get in a car and drive, spend a whole week, spend a lot of money to go on a trip like that, and then come back and have to work, extra so the other crew could go. It's like, no, that's a stupid idea. But I think he wanted to plan it so that me and him could go, and even though there was going to be other employees around, he would try to find ways to make up how we could try to spend time. He would come up with all kinds of stuff, and it was like, at a certain point, it kind of did become a little bit noticeable to me. And then my car crapped out, and I was like, I don't know if I can keep working here or whatever. And then he came up to me and he said, I'll co-sign a car for you. And at first I was like, no. And then the very next morning, the other manager, she came and told me, she goes, I know I told you all this stuff about him, but he also co-signed my car, and there was nothing, he didn't, do anything, didn't want anything in return or anything like that. He did it completely as a friend. And this guy had the worst behavior towards customers. He would scream and yell over the phone while he was taking their order. What do you want on that pizza? Do you want cheese? Just, you had to listen to the way he would take orders. What's your address? What's the phone number? And he would, like, people, when you're ordering sometimes on the phone, you don't think it's like the end of the world, and you're like, oh, well, what kind of ingredients do you have? What do you have? And, you're just kind of talking in a normal voice, but sometimes when we get slammed, we would have like 50 or 100 orders, in like 30 minutes time. Sometimes we get so bombarded, and he would just kind of freak out and start screaming and yelling. And he had that bad behavior of yelling, and he would yell in the restaurant too, but he didn't yell it personally at you. He didn't, except for a few incidents that I'm going to talk about, he would do that. But anyway, he had this kind of behavior, and then he was doing kind of subtly what he was doing to me, and then he offered to co-sign the car, and then the other manager told me, no, he did it for me, and there was nothing inappropriate about it. And I was like, okay. So I let him co-sign a car, or not co-sign, actually he bought a car, because it's another story about the car lot. But something went wrong at the car lot, and so he just bought a car, and he sold it to me. Like, I would make payments to him, and I really kind of didn't like that in a way. But in a way I thought, okay, well, maybe since it's not co-signed in my name and his name, we're not going to be connected in a way. But the next day, the very next day I came into work, he didn't want anybody to know that he did that for me. But his behavior told everybody that he did. And he goes, I can't remember exactly what his words were, but something about me cooking dinner for him, like all this. He didn't say since I co-signed a car for him. I can't remember what he said, but instantly everybody could tell. It was just an incident that where, it seemed like something happened. And then one day before I got the car, my car broke down and it was at his apartment because I can't remember what I had to do. I had to go, I think, pick him up or do something, and my car crapped out, or either I was driving by or something. I told him, can I park it in the parking lot? I just drove up or something. I can't remember, but for some particular reason. And then the other manager, he had broken his ankle, and we were giving him rides to and from work. I forgot. And another manager drove up the next day and saw my car there, like overnight or something. And he thought, did she spend the night with him? And he told me that. I was like, what? No. And he goes, well, I didn't think so. And this guy would scream and yell across the way. If he wanted, like, bring some more tomatoes, he would scream at the top of his lungs, and it would kind of jolt, But he wasn't, like, being mad, but he had a really loud voice when we do that. And there's an episode of Frasier where this lady that Frasier was dating, he kind of had that kind of yell. It wasn't like insistently mad at you, but it would sound that way. And then the car thing, I kept getting I was older than most employees, and some of the employees, I would do all the prep in the daytime. I did all the prep by myself. I was the only employee who worked in the daytime that would do prep. We would have a few people that would come in and do the lunch rush, but I did all the prep, and then I also did the lunch rush. I drove for the lunch rush. But I cut all the vegetables, I did everything. The managers would come in and they would set up some of the pizzas, some of the dough and stuff like that. And I had this one manager I worked with, and he was a really nice guy, and I really did like him. And slowly, I don't know what happened, because we never fought or anything. I actually liked working with him, and we got along really well, and things went really well. And he would always call me if he was busy or something. He depended on me a lot, and he would say, oh, I'm so glad you're here, and thank goodness I don't have to put up with these bozos, or can you take this one because you're the only one who knows how to do, or he would do that to me. And so he always treated me well, and so I didn't, it didn't bother me. When I have a boss that treats me well, then yeah, I'll go over, doing my job, to the best, more than 100%, whatever. And then slowly I noticed his behavior kind of changed, and he would kind of yell sometimes, like, Kim, come here. And then he would tell me to do something. I was like, okay. And then it got, and within 1 week, he kind of did it in a weird way. He did it again, and he would screw around with the other guys, the college kids that were there. And I'd be back there doing work and doing everything, and then they would all be standing around talking. And then one day, it was like every day that week, he would yell at me to do something, and they would all be standing around. I was kind of getting a little pissed off about it, because I would do the morning prep, and then sometimes I would leave at 5, or either I would come back, I'd leave early, like 2 or 3, and then I would come back for the evening rush. I just had a weird schedule. Just whenever they needed me, they just used me for that. And he yelled at me. He called me a bitch at the top of his lungs. He screamed at me. I went to go get something, and I told him, I don't remember, I was already doing like 2 or 3 things. And then I don't remember what it was. Like, I couldn't do everything that he wanted. And there's like 3 or 4 people standing around. It's like, well, one of them has to do it. And he was, not giving me the deliveries and making me go do this. So I was losing, I used to make like 50. I made more tips than anybody there. Most of the drivers were male, and we hardly ever had a female. We'd have a female driver every once in a while, but they would always quit. So I was the only real female driver there. But I still made more money than anybody. And sometimes they would, how much did you make? How much tip did they make? And they would get, but that's a lot of times female drivers, and female in certain particular like waiters and waitresses, a lot of the females do make more, and I don't know why. I mean, it's just a weird fact. And they seem like they would get jealous, and even if they wanted to take that, sometimes certain people wouldn't tip them, but they would tip me. There's one guy that would give me like about an $8 or $10 tip every single time, and he would not tip a single male driver. And that's not something I can do anything about, and that happened a lot of times. And when this manager, with all the standing around, all they were doing, he screamed at me at the top of his lungs, bitch, and that just, after that, I just didn't do anything for him. I would throw stuff and for like a few weeks. And then one of the other female phone girls, she called my house and pretended that she called my boss, Bob, the weirdo, pretended that it was me and was crying and screaming, there's something wrong, like there's something wrong with me or something, and hung up on him. And then her boyfriend called me and pretended to be my boss, and I told him F you or something, because I knew immediately it wasn't him, and hung up on him. And then my boss lived probably about 10 or 15 minutes away. He came to my house. He got there in like 7 or 8 minutes, and goes, pounded on the door. Are you okay? What's wrong? I was like, what? He goes, I got a call from you. You were upset and crying. I was like, no, it wasn't. It was Julie. Julie and her boyfriend. Her boyfriend just called me, and I told him F you, and Julie called you and pretended to be me. And he's like that. And I said, this is it. You need to fire her. And there was already some other tension, other things that went on with that. And he was the biggest scaredy cat baby. He would not deal with any kind of employee problem, and he would just ignore it or act like it would not, just, he didn't do anything about it. And that caused a huge problem between me and him. And this was about the 7th or 8th time. And I had a male employee also. We had a TV in there, and it had a remote, and sometimes we would turn it on, and I was watching something. I had the remote in my hand. I was fixing, sometimes when it was really slow, like in the middle of the daytime, if we didn't get a lot of orders sometimes we didn't get an order for like 30 minutes or an hour, if it was really slow, and we had all the work done. Plus, I did everything in the daytime. I did all the prep. And so I'd take like a 20 or 30 minute break sometimes. And I was watching something. This other driver, he was the other day driver, and he came in, and he goes, something about how this is stupid, and he ripped it out of my hand. And I grabbed it back, and I think I said a few choice words or something. I can't remember. And there was, incidents like that, and just he didn't do anything about it. And so on my yearly review, they give you a yearly review, and they give us a space where we can make remarks about what we think. And I wrote this whole section about a lot of stuff that went on, this and that. And the owners get to read it. And I turned it in, and the next morning I came in to do all the work, and I had to take something out to the trash can. And I looked in, and my review was in there. It was all tore up into little pieces. And it just happened to be sitting right there. I was like, what? And I got it out of the trash, and I called the owners, and I told them, or I didn't call them, I went to their house. And I couldn't find all the pieces, and I couldn't rewrite it the way that I thought it in my head. And this is like, they would get probably about 50 to 100 complaints about this guy per year because of the way he would treat and act people, the way he would act. And they just ignored it too. They didn't do anything about it. And I ended up quitting. And the car that I had, I didn't find a job fast enough to be able to make the payments. And him and his sister came and repossessed the car. But I was so mad because it was, an environment that I was being harassed by, people calling my house. Not just Julie and the other girl, her boyfriend or whatever. There was a couple of other incidents, and being called a bitch and being yelled at, and a lot of this, I never got into a fight or an argument with hardly anybody there. I think there was one argument I got into with, and it was over vanilla ice cream that it was so stupid. Two guys were arguing about the vanilla ice cream flavors, which was the best, and I thought vanilla's the same. It doesn't, none of them are, no, you know, it's all the same, until one of them brought me a thing of Bluebell vanilla, and I tasted it, and I was like, oh, this is good. This is, you know, yeah, this one's better. And because they were arguing over what brand, I said, no, this one's better. But that was like not even, well, they were in a heated argument. They were actually arguing about it, but the one that went and brought me the ice cream, I tasted of it, and that's my favorite ice cream to this day, Bluebell vanilla, homemade vanilla. And I never could get anything, any kind of satisfaction from anything from the owners, or from, finally they did, I told them, you know, we'd had so many incidents with this guy that they need to fire him or do something. And it took a long time, and then eventually they did fire him, or they didn't fire him, they let him quit, but it was months and months later, and other things had happened, a few other things, and they made an announcement in a meeting that, well, he's decided to move on to go to a different, he's going to go to school or do, I don't know, something like that, I can't remember. And I didn't mean for this video to be so long, but that was one of the most unhealthy places that I ever worked at. And actually we had to, when he broke his ankle, we were giving him rides, and one of the girls there, she didn't, you know, a lot of the employees, they didn't want to give him a ride, you know, and because he yelled and they didn't like him. A lot of people hated him there. And this one girl gave him a ride, and she drove like a crazy person. And he told me the next day, I'm never riding with her again. She drove like a crazy person. And then she came to work, I think, later on, or the next day or something. And she goes, yeah, I drove all crazy so he wouldn't want to ride with me again. I was like, okay. That was one of the worst places I've ever worked at. And one of the, I don't know, just one of the, well, at first I actually loved that job, and until these incidents started to build up. And then when I quit, I was hearing that, oh, they're having problems, they can't keep employees, and the service is really bad now, and all these things. Even people who remembered, I saw customers, because I worked there for, I think, actually 3.5 or 4.5. I worked there for several years, and I saw several customers after I quit in like supermarkets or the gas station or wherever, you know, just other places. That happened to me probably 5 or 6 times, I think. And they're like, didn't you used to deliver our pizzas? And he goes, oh, we don't even go there anymore. The service is horrible. It takes like an hour and a half, and it's just awful. Everything's awful there now. We just, all of a sudden, it just stopped doing it. And one person asked me, when did I quit? And I told him, it's like, that's about the time, you know, it just, all of a sudden, it went horrible. And I don't think it hinged just on me, but I think it was just all this behavior happening, and then them not training people to work consistently and do the job. And it, you know, it's not just one person. It proves that one person can't do it all, you know. And I was the one person that they depended on for actually making all the prep in the daytime for a pizza place. Although I did have help with the dough and stuff like that from the managers, but it was actually pre-made dough from another store that they transported over. The only thing we really had to do was put it up and put it onto these skids and like that. We actually didn't have to make it. And so one person can't do it all. And if they're not all trained, and you know, you can't depend on just one employee to be the main thing and have other employees, you know, beepy bopping around and not doing anything. And that was kind of a thing there. When people would come in, a lot of the people would be laughing and talking and screwing around. Then there'd be 2 or 3 main people working, you know, making the pizzas or whatever it is. Okay, if you've ever worked in a place like that, then you know what I'm talking about. You know, if you had to shoulder a lot of the responsibility and other people were just screwing around, oh, that's one thing I can't stand at work. I just can't stand that. And I kind of had a little bit of that go on today at my job, because we got extra people there to help us. We're in a little crunch thing that is going on, and so we had extra people there to kind of help us. And sometimes you had to tell people, get off your phone, you know. She's fired people repeatedly. The most people that have lost their job where I work at have been for using their phones and screwing around, not doing the work. So if you know what I'm talking about, then you know how I feel. All right. Well, thank you, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.